Why don't you go ahead and tell us your name and a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Peyton, and so I grew up a believer, going to church, but it was probably 3 years ago, whenever I went through a heartbreaking event, that I realized that I needed to, have a relationship with Christ, and wasn't really sure what that meant, what that looked like. And so, like I had grown up going to church and everything, but it was more of like everyone's a Christian, And so I was like, oh, so am I. And then it hit me whenever I was surrounded by a ton of other believers here. I'm in Colorado, originally from Missouri. And I saw the way that they were living their lives and going to church, and just this relationship that I saw that they had with Jesus. And I was like, I want that. What does that look like? Like, how can I have that? And so, I resurrendered my life about going on 3 years ago now. And it's just been a journey, and I can go into depth on multiple things with that. But that's like a good summary of, I guess, where I'm at now, living in Colorado and loving it.
You live in Colorado. What do you do?
Yeah, so right now I'm a barista part-time. I'm also a nanny part-time. I kind of do multiple different things. I mentor a couple girls part-time, and then I do like communication for a ministry called Unite Ministries. So we unite ministry leaders throughout Colorado Springs through prayer, worship, and outreach. And we just, we meet for prayer meetings, and in the past it's been worship events. And so it's just all about getting together and just praying with other leaders and equipping them, so that, when you're praying for someone, you can't not love them. So it's just a way of, just uniting the body, uniting the church. And so that's something else that I do.
Awesome.
Cool.
So I know Peyton from her days in Missouri growing up. She was in the student ministry that I worked with there. And so grew up, you went to Webb City High School.
I did.
Right? Yeah. So that's where I know her from. And I just love following you online and seeing all the cool things that you have to say and do. I know you're a writer too.
Yeah.
Like you
write a lot.
Different things that you share. So I love your heart. And I know that so we're doing relationship goals is the sermon series that we're doing. And I feel like you probably have a lot of experience that would be relatable to the students. And so we might just ask you whatever you're comfortable to share about like your relationship story and what you learned from that, where you are now, and what God has taught you through all of it. So that's a big question. If you want to just kind of summarize your story for us, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah. So in summary, when I was 19, I'll be 26 in a few weeks. So when I was 19, I basically moved my whole entire life out here to Colorado from Missouri, and for a guy who I got married to. He was in the military, and he, like I said, it was before I really surrendered my life, but I was a Christian. And he was like, oh, me too. I wasn't really sure what I was looking for besides the fact that he loved me, and he was just treating me right. And so that was that. And then 2 years into our marriage, he had deployed and he came back, and he just out of the blue was like, I don't want to be with you. Like, you need to leave or I'm going to leave. I want a divorce. And I was like, what? Completely blindsided. And so that was 4 years ago now. And I remember just being so shocked that that could even be a thing, because divorce is like not in my vocabulary and not at all what I thought would happen in my life. Especially, I feel like I'm one who loves so hard and so, so huge. So I was like, why me? Why did this happen? That really wrecked me. And I remember initially it was really good. And I was like up here with Jesus, and after it ended, and I started writing a lot. And that's whenever I started sharing my writing. And it was really healing. It helped me process a lot, and just the Lord spoke to me a lot through writing and journaling and blogging and stuff. And then I wasn't fully healed from it. And so I just started going down the same cycle, and I was going downhill, and I was like, well, he was my husband. So if he's not going to stay, how can I get guys to stay? And so I just gave my full self, my heart, my body to guys to get them to stay. And I realized a pattern, like none of them were staying. And I was like, why? What is this? And so it was about 2.5, 3 years ago now, I think. I don't know the timeline exactly. Somewhere around that time, 2.5 years ago, I graduated college. And I was like, I sat on my bed, and I remember I had my journal, and I was like, what is my purpose here on earth? Like, why am I here? And from then on, it's just been this journey. Like, I cut out all the toxic relationships. I recommitted until marriage again. I quit my job. I started going to literally, like, every night of the week I was going to worship nights in church. I was just like, feed me. Like, I need this. I don't know. I've never had this, and I just felt alive finally. And I realized my worth, and I felt like in that moment too, God was like, you're going to instill like worth and value in young women. And I didn't even know what that looked like or meant. I just felt it very strongly, because sometimes I feel like our biggest struggles are our strengths. And so it's no wonder those things are being attacked. So yeah, that was a few years ago. And that's like a big, big part of my testimony. And it's, since I can remember, it's been a cycle just like that in different ways, as far as my worth and value goes, and always giving my full self so that they'll stay, my heart, my words, whatever it is, and them always like walking all over me. And so, yeah, it's just been this journey of like, what am I really worth? Like, knowing that my identity is in Christ. It's not in guys, and it's not in what other people are going to tell me or my experience. And a counselor once told me, yeah, your actions, they're going to affect your life for sure, but they're not going to affect they're not who you are. And so that really spoke to me, because my identity, it is in Christ, and it's who he says that I am. So that's been something I'm learning. And yeah, that's, I would say, a good summary. But are there any things you want me to like elaborate on with that, or?
Well, I just want to say that I'm so sorry that that happened, and that I'm so thankful you're willing to share. And I think that for a lot of our students, that'll be really helpful to see or hear about somebody who's gone through so much and has redeemed it for the Lord, instead of using it like a restrictor, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be really cool for them to hear, and I'm thankful that you are sharing it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have a list of questions, so I might just ask you some of these. So after all that you went through and the lessons that God was teaching you and how to become, more independent in the way that you view your worth and your value, what do you think are some of the biggest lessons then? I mean, maybe elaborate on some of that for us, like some of the biggest lessons you learned through your times of singleness, even, and what God taught you in those periods.
Okay. Well, there's so much, I feel like. Yeah, I think that it's so easy for us to want to, I guess, find temporary happiness in just someone who's going to love us. And I feel like for me, that's such a huge thing, because I so badly, like, with who I am and my personality and just like my heart, I so badly just want to be loved. And so I've often like settled, because I do just want to be loved. And so I think in singleness, it's been such a challenge, but like, honestly, in moments where I'm like, oh, I'm weak, or oh, I'm lonely, or whatever the feelings are, I just have to remember his truths. And it might sound cliche, it might sound like, okay, I know, but honestly, just my identity, I feel like, is number one. Like I touched on that earlier. I feel like knowing your identity and knowing the truths that he speaks over you and like who you are, those are like two of the biggest things. And so being reminded of that, like, I've made a truth list and I have like I have words, and it's like, I am worthy, I am loved, I am beautiful, I love my curly hair, like literally whatever it is, just like speaking those truths over yourself, because also there's so much power in words. So I will never, like, I am very sensitive to words in general, and I think we all are affected by words. So just, I'm not ever like, oh, I'm never going to be loved. No, like, there's power to that. And so just speaking truth-filled words, and fighting those battles when they come. Like, I think you see all these quote unquote good options of guys that might like pass you by, and you're like, okay, he's a good one, he might be. But also knowing that there is pursuit there, and just trusting. And the Lord's still teaching me so much on this too. This is just like a little piece, but trusting that like His will is going to happen. Like it's not something we can control. I actually had a very recent relationship. It's a whole nother story, and I'm still waiting for like full revelations from the Lord on that. But I feel like something He taught me was that my expectations are a form of control, and so I expected all these things, and I like had it planned out, I guess, in a sense. And when we try to do that, when we try to plan our lives and we try to expect like marriage is going to happen this month, or like I'm going to have 5 kids by this time, or whatever it is, or I'm going to, I don't know, marry this guy right here, or whatever it is, I feel like that's us trying to control our lives. And we don't at all. And so just surrendering that and letting go of that is huge. And so the last even 2 months, I think I've really learned that. And so I've just surrendered, and I've let go of my expectations, and I'm not, I don't have an idea in my head anymore of it's going to be this guy this month, this day, or whatever. Like, I'm going to be 30 or I'm going to be 27, or whatever it is. Like, just letting go of those expectations. And I think that it's a lot less stressful.
You're great.
Yeah.
I love everything you said.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like, and I've never been married, so I could be completely off base with this. But I feel like once you get married, not just because of your own self-identifying, but also because of the way everybody else identifies you, you become so closely, you become one with somebody else. Yeah. So how do you feel like both, or I guess all inclusive of like before you were initially married and while you were married and then post marriage, how do you feel like your identity shifted and maybe was drawn closer to who you are? And I guess you explained this a little bit, but just to expound a little bit more on what you learned about how you can only be found in Christ and not in somebody else, or what you your past or whatever, those types of things.
Yeah, I think so. One, singleness is like the biggest opportunity to be, I would say, like not your closest to God, but like literally it's just you and God. You don't have another person. It's you and God. And so why not, like, you'll have your husband and you'll be one, or your wife and you'll be one, and you'll be able to, he's always first. But it's different because you have more time, even like logically, you have more time. So I think that in my singleness, I found myself having some of the like closest like to the Lord, closest relationship to the Lord, word that, right? And I would say definitely like before I was married, I don't think my relationship with God was ever really fully there in a sense. Like it was, but I didn't know what intimacy with Jesus meant. I didn't know. I just said I was a Christian. So I don't think I was living it out in full. Like I wasn't aware. I was just, I didn't know. So when I was married, though, I think it is a beautiful opportunity for people who are married to, or even like in recent relationships, I've been committed to people who do push me to be my best. So I for sure been in relationships who, I guess, highlight the best parts of me in regards to my relationship with Christ. So there's a plus there too, definitely. So like never settle for someone who's not going to bring out the best parts in you. Like absolutely. But right now I'm still single right now. I'm single. I'm not dating anyone. And so it's like, I have all the time in the world right now to just grow and to learn too. And that's something, don't take advantage of that, because you should have your bar set up here. And it's like, I always said, I want to marry someone who knows the Bible better than me. Like, that's just one little thing that's on my, like, husband list. And so just learning more about the gospel even, or like Jesus or the Bible or certain books of the Bible, things that like I never had the time to do before. So now I'm doing that, just asking God questions and using up my time during my singleness that I might not always have or I might not have had before, and really just not taking advantage of that. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any advice for the students on like ways that you can spend that extra free time and like things they can do to help draw them closer to the Lord, or you've created in your life that you found to be super effective or anything like that?
Yeah, I think don't think of it as something that's not fun, because I think so often in this day and age people are like, oh, religion, or they'll say religion. You know, I'm like, my biggest thing to say is like, I'm not religious. I have a relationship with Christ. And people are like, wait, what? And then when I expound on that, they're like, they're interested and they're listening and they're like, wow, okay. And so, yeah, I don't make it something that is boring or something that is work. If you compare it to learning like a class in school, it's not going to be enjoyable. And it shouldn't be this religious thing like that. It should be like, hey, God, just talk to him in the morning. Sometimes I'm getting ready. I'm like, what should I wear today, God? Like, what should I wear? And just like talk to him, just have a conversation. And like I said, words are powerful, and like he'll speak in the everyday things. And so for me, he speaks a lot through music. He speaks through words, like I said. I might be reading a poem and I'm like, wow, he's speaking through this book. Or just everyday things like sunsets, or if you like to be outdoors. He's not boring, he's creative. And so I read quite a bit. I write a lot. So I don't know if writing has really helped me, I guess helped him come alive for me. Because I'll say things and I'm like, I know that can't come from me. You know, that's not me, my human brain. Or so that also community, like the people that you surround yourself with, I think that's huge too. So yes, we should be around non-believers to, be an example for them, but also it's really, really, it's a very real thing. Like who you surround yourself with, I mean, it's going to affect your life. And so just having like even one or two, if you're a girl, like girls surrounding you, or a guy, have a couple good guy friends who you can communicate with, because you want to be raw and you want to be honest, and you don't always have to be perfect. Like I have days all the time where I'm like, I'm not good today. Like I don't believe this, or like I'm feeling this, and it might not be a positive thing, but just like having good solid friends, I think helps. And like go to a random worship night, or I don't know, find a podcast that you like, or find a writer that writes things that makes you think, or find a book that makes you ask questions. I think that's a big one for me too, is like reading things and having questions. Like God wants us to have questions because that draws us closer to him. So yeah, I would say ask questions too. Don't be afraid to do that.
Great thing.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, you already answered a lot of the questions that we were going to ask. So you did a great job. Thanks for being an easy person to interview. So is there anything we haven't asked you, like if you're thinking about advice that you would want to give students about dating or relationships? Are there any questions we haven't asked, or any advice that you would still like to give them that you haven't talked about?
Man, I don't know, very just like simply, do not settle because you feel like you're going to run out of time. And don't settle because you feel like you're never going to have anyone good enough. And don't settle because you feel like you've made mistakes and you're not worthy, because those are all lies. For sure they are. And so just trusting, and I think even more so just, trusting and believing that you are worthy of someone who's good. You're worthy of someone who is going to value you and see the worth in you and treat you right and lead you well. Or if you're a guy, someone who's going to love you well, or whatever it is, respect you. So just not settling, because it's a real thing that a lot of us have done. I have done multiple times over and over. And it really like does affect you in not a good way. And so, just like trusting, believing, not settling, I would say, and just knowing your worth. I feel like it sounds like it could be so cliche, but believe your worth. More than just knowing it, like believe it.
Yeah. I have one more question.
Okay.
Do you think it's wrong for students or really people at any age to desire to be married or to be in a relationship? Like, what would be your stance on that? Because there's a lot, especially in the Christian world, with the things that Paul says about singleness, where you hear like it's a good thing to be single, and that's true. But do you think because of that it's wrong to desire a relationship, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think that he puts that desire in there for a reason. I really believe that. And like a marriage is supposed to represent Christ in the church, so why would he not put that desire in our heart? But at the same time, I think that we should, like I was saying earlier, when you're single, like that's some of the best time to just have the like thriving relationship with Christ. So I see both. But absolutely, like you're gonna have a desire to be married, but don't idolize that. That's what I would say. So we can idolize many things. Like I could idolize wanting to be married more than I have a relationship with Jesus, and that I would say would be wrong. But yeah, absolutely. Like I want a family, I want kids, I want a husband. Like those are real desires, and when you seek Him first, He'll give you the desires of your heart. So like I believe that to be true.
Yeah. There was a quote I heard recently from a sermon that said, marriage doesn't complete your singleness, it exposes it. And so I think a lot of things that you have talked about are along those lines, but what are your thoughts about that quote?
Ooh, yeah. So it doesn't, what was it again?
Marriage doesn't complete your singleness, it exposes your singleness. And I think what you meant was kind of like, if we're not whole and purposeful in our singleness already, and then we enter a relationship, it's just going to expose our flaws and our needs and our sinfulness more. Like marrying someone isn't going to make us healthier. It's just going to expose the brokenness.
So true. And that's why, like, I've gone to like healing counseling or whatever it is, like being full yourself and really being at that healthy point where you do value yourself, your worth. And that goes with the not settling thing, because you want to be here before you get married. So it's not like, it's possible, like you're gonna have to work through it no matter what, but if you're here when you get married, like you're healthy and you're always gonna have things to work through. But you're gonna, if you enter a marriage unhealthy, you're gonna have to fight a lot harder with them than you had to do with yourself and the Lord. So it will expose those things. Like absolutely heal from them. Like work on it. Like use this time where you don't have anyone to depend on besides the Lord, and go to counseling or like read books or whatever it is that gets you to that wholeness. Because two whole people marry each other. It's not a half and a half thing.
I love it. Well, any other questions?
I don't think so.
Thank you so much for your time,
thank you so
Peyton.
much.
You said
that was super helpful.
Incredible things that I think are going to be really, really good for our students to hear. And praying for you and your whole life and your relationship. God's doing some great things with you. So
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for letting me. Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see what happens when you show them. Hopefully it speaks something.
Yeah, I'm sure that He is using your story to minister to people. And so that's huge. That's a major thing. All right.
Aww.
Have a great day. It was good to see you.
You too. It was nice to meet you. Bye.